Welcome to Papamutes, everybody. Today, my guest is Pat Benincasa. She is an artist, an educator, an author, and a fellow podcaster. And I'm thrilled to have her on the pod. Pat, welcome to Papamutes.
Hey, thank you. I've been so looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's good to meet you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're coming to us from the great state of Minnesota.
That's right, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Is that where you were born?
No, I speak fluent Minnesotan, but I was born in the Detroit area, Pontiac.
Okay. Now, when you were, a young girl growing up, everybody goes to grade. Well, shouldn't say everybody, but you go to grade school, high school, you take art classes. Some people, they like it or they just want to get through it. But what made you, say, hey, art is my thing? Was it early on? And, how did that happen?
Well, that's a good question. I went to Catholic school. I'm going to date myself. In the days when they didn't really have art classes, they would hand out mimeographed images of saints and you'd go color them. Okay.
I remember that. I went to Catholic school.
You know what I'm talking about. And so
Oh, yeah.
what I would do before I even realized it, I'd start drawing in the background. I'd add things. I'd put expression on the faces, add people. And it just happened. I cannot remember a time when I didn't think I was an artist.
So how old, though? I mean, we talking first grade, second grade?
Oh, again, as a little kid, it's just that I always wanted to draw pictures. And it's interesting. My parents were very business oriented. They were both born in Italy. I'm a first generation. And business was talked about in our house, but not art. So I don't know. Maybe it's my ancestors. I don't know. Maybe it's in our blood, but it came full throttle. And I like to joke that in Catholic school, you might remember this, there was a thing called the Baltimore Catechism.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to memorize. Remember those?
Yep.
And you had to memorize those questions. And I think the first one, why did God make me? God made me to know him, love him, and to serve him, and to be an artist. And I was saying this stuff before I even knew what the hell I was saying. I just knew it.
What category does your art fall under, if anything? I mean, is that a good word, category, or
I think that's a fair question, Bob. But God, that's a tough question because I always follow the idea. I will always follow and yield to an idea. So if an idea says stop painting, you need to work in glass, I will go learn how to do glass. If an idea says I'm really interested in industrial demolished work sites, I need to be painting on sheet metal. I'll paint on sheet metal. So I'm not an artist. There's some artists that can really develop and have a body of work that's very unified. If you look at my work, I have sacred works with glass. I have public commissions with 7 tons of glass and steel for a skylight. And I have a body of work that is industrial work sites that have been taken down. I love those things. I love that anybody who's grown up at a certain time can drive on a highway and you'll see those factories in the distance. We've seen them. And I just have a real respect for that, those beautiful buildings.
So is that my next question was, what inspires you? Is it just you see something and, what inspires you for a piece of work? I mean, obviously, a factory, you see it and boom, but what about other stuff?
Well, it's not, well, actually my work started, as an artist grows, you follow things at the time. And for many years, I was painting domestic scenes, life size, like 6 foot by 8 foot canvases of rooms with tables and Persian rugs. But the work evolved. And I think the one thing that does unify my work is my passion for geometry. I spent a lot of time working with images of sacred geometry, like labyrinths, the circle, the square. And I built glass labyrinths and painted them. And then the next thing I know, I'm looking at ancient Roman cities, and they're laid out using geometry. So I went from the sacred geometry of labyrinths into painting these ancient cityscapes like maps of cities. So for years, I painted a map of Detroit the way it's laid out. So Youngstown, all these different cities. I was just interested in how they were laid out. But then one day I thought, I feel like an airplane. I'm flying over these things. Now I want to get inside of the city. And it brought me to these factories, steel mills. They are very geometric. If you ever looked at them with the bridges and the structures, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, I've researched your work, so yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But so you see, we'll use a factory as an example. Okay, I want to paint this factory. Are you painting it or drawing it or what have you from memory, or do you go out, sit in front of it? You know, you have the image of an artist with the canvas, and there's the factory off in the distance, or do you take a picture of it and then copy it? Or you want to draw the factory. Are you sitting in front of it, or do
Well,
you
that's
just
a
bring it
great
back home in
question.
your head?
So I am
Yeah.
not one of I'm not one of those gifted artists that can just pull out a canvas and start painting what they see like that. Oh
Okay.
my God, those folks are amazing. I research the hell out of everything I do. So if I'm looking at maybe the Lackawanna or Bridge, I start researching books. I go into the archives. I look at photographs from when it was built at its heyday, when they tore it down, and I just study different angles of it. Then I find the one I like, and then I start making the painting based on that. So every painting of an industrial, I just study these photographs, whether it's Bethlehem steel or Republic steel. I just look at everything about how they are constructed. Then I read books about the steel industry, the auto industry. I just want to know about it.
Okay. How do you feel about digital art made from a computer?
I think that's fine. I think that uh, the tools that an artist uses is fair game. If I design something that requires a steel yard, I'm not going to go out there and try to weld 7 tons of steel, but I will make scale models and generate blueprints for the steel welders to use it. Now, someone might say, but you didn't make it out of your own hand. So that idea that the tool is removed, the computer is removed. I do a lot of digital art. I make art out of everything. Give me a computer, give me a pen. I don't care what it is, a paintbrush. To me, it's just a tool to realize the dream, the idea, and give it form.
How about abstract art? Let me put it this way. I like when I see something, I like to know what it is, but it doesn't mean I don't like paintings. Colorful. What do I want
Mm-hmm.
to say? Nothing. No structure, just colors and stuff. But you go to an arts festival or what have you, and this sticks out in my head. I think we're in Boston or something, and it was a bunch of stuff, 3-dimensional stuff, and there was a giant tire, like a giant tire from maybe a backhoe or some kind of construction
Mm-hmm.
equipment, and there was a chain around it, and that was this art piece, and it was labeled, chain tire or something. To me, I don't know. I don't, not to be negative, but that's not like art to me. But I'm not an artist, so I
That's
don't know.
Bob. I think looking at art is a little bit like falling in love. If you see someone you're going to fall in love with, you don't need someone tapping on your shoulder saying, now, Pat, this person is a wonderful conversationalist and they're this and that. I think you should fall in love. Art, you know it when you see it, it moves you. If the tire doesn't move you and you think, what the hell is that? That's fine. I just think it's a very, okay, you probably figured out, Bob, I don't mince words here.
That's fine.
If you're looking at something that speaks to you, fine. And this whole notion, for years, I would get this like abstract art. Anybody can do that, or what is that?
Hmm.
Now, let's do a little shop talk here. Okay.
Sure.
Throughout the history of painting until the modern era, the idea was that the canvas was a window. And if you looked at that window, it would tell a story. You'd see a person, you'd see a crucifixion, you would see a landscape. So the painting was like a window. And then you look at around the 1900s or I would say 1850s, 60s, people like Van Gogh, Monet, the Impressionists, the Expressionists, they come along and they got brush marks the size of Nebraska floating all over their canvas, and people are outraged saying, this isn't painting, it's an impression. I mean, they were being slammed. So for that generation, it was like, what is that? And then if you carry it further, along comes the 20th century and saying a painting is more than telling a story in and of itself. It is more than that. So it's okay. I mean, I don't think that there's a law saying that everybody should like paintings because someone puts a tag on it saying it's art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did
Okay.
I answer you, or did I go on a soapbox here, Bob?
No, it's fine. No, I'm looking at it from a different point of view. That's good. No, yeah, I just, I've gone right here in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Art Museum, and there's a
Oh, yeah.
giant, I mean, huge 16-foot by 20 white canvas, and there's a black dot in the corner,
Yep.
and that's it. And I'm like,
Yep.
I mean, whatever works for you, but anyway, that's why sometimes, like I said, I look at that and I'm like, oh man, I don't know, I don't see that. I like to see a drawing or something, or a
Oh,
landscape, or a
sure.
human,
Yeah.
abstract. Again, like you said, if it works for you, fine. If you love the girl or guy, great. If not, move on. uh,
Yeah, something like
so how? I mean, the business of art. How difficult is it to make money as an artist? And I don't mean teaching. I mean art.
the art making. It's well, I'm going to talk pre-COVID.
Okay.
Up until COVID, the traditional thing was you had a gallery. The gallery would represent you. You get your work in exhibitions, and that was the way it was done. There were gatekeepers that would say, "Hey, I want to include your work in this exhibition," or "Hey, I want to show your work at the gallery." So it was very, very hierarchical, and there were gatekeepers, galleries, curators, directors. Then along comes COVID. Everything changes. The gatekeepers didn't know what the hell to do. Galleries shut down, music venues shut down, writer lectures shut down. And so all of a sudden, what were people to do? Well, artists started going online. They had online exhibitions. They were selling their works online. Artists have websites. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different world now that it's direct access to a lot of people.
Yeah. It's it's like COVID, like BC, and before Christ, after Christ. It's like before COVID, after COVID. It's like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
So
It's changed everything.
yeah, it's bizarre. But so if for someone who has natural talent, like I remember this girl in grade school, and she would just draw. And I'm talking, sixth grade, and I was like, I was envious. But uh, for someone with natural talent to draw and paint, right? Let's just use those 2
Mm-hmm.
elements. Is formal schooling necessary?
Oh, you're asking me a tough question there. You're talking to someone who burned, who put a
Oh,
torch to her MFA and MA degree documents.
what?
When I graduated and got
Wow.
those 2 documents, I went to my studio, got out a match, and I burned both of them.
Why?
And I told myself, a piece of paper is not going to make me an artist. A lifetime of making art will determine whether I'm an artist or not. Now, some people will go to school. If you go to school, you can plug into networks easier. You can get to know people. You can break into a community easier. But that's not the only way to go. There are a lot of people who are self-taught doing beautiful work. So I think that the bigger issue is, how do you honor your talent? How do you develop it? And if you don't have the money to go to school, set up a corner in your apartment or your house and allow yourself to explore and make things. And then go online if you want to exhibit things. There are hundreds of online exhibitions all over the world.
Hmm. Okay. Now, how about, I mean, obviously a degree is going to benefit you if you're going to teach art, correct? I mean, if
It
you go
also
on a
helps
job
your,
interview,
it does, but it also helps you to get to know people. Like a professor can say, hey, I have this gallery friend. He's looking to put his show together. Your work would fit nicely. I'll give him a call. Those kinds of connections are always there. I've taught at arts high schools, and even those connections are phenomenal.
hmm
But if you want to teach, yeah, it would help if you had a master's degree. Yeah, it would.
yeah, it's all about networking. No matter what field, you got to network and
Yeah.
connect. So what's the longest you ever spent on a project, whether it's a painting, a
Oh,
drawing? I mean, one that just took you. Oh, you tell me how long. What's the longest time you spent on a project?
well, I'd have to say my public and sacred commissions. The I did the Falling Water Skylight for the Minnesota Judicial Center. It's a 7-ton glass and steel sculpture skylight suspended on the state capitol grounds in the Supreme Court building. And
Mm.
that was a major project because, first of all, it was a competition, a national competition. And then after that part of it and being selected, you have the fabrication phase. You generate hundreds of drawings. I build architectural models. I think I've built 400 or 500 architectural models of my own work. I'm always building things,
Okay.
and so a project that was almost like I would say 9 months, 10 months.
Wow.
Just a steel yard. It took them 5.5 months to. It was pure compound geometry. These structures. So the steel yard guys, they had my huge model. It was like 3 feet by 4 feet that they were using, and it took them 5.5 months to weld. And boy, talk about artwork. Those guys are amazing.
Mm.
What they can do with welds, they're beautiful. They're exquisite. So that, and then you have the once you get everything made, we had to rent a warehouse space and set up the piece to see if this was going to work. And then we had to cut 614 pieces of art glass, and then we had to laminate them, and then we had to see if they fit into the structures. So there's a lot of things to this.
There's a video on that, right? In my research, think there was some kind of document. I don't know if it's a documentary on that project or is that a different one?
That was a different project. That was
Oh,
Redemption Window.
yeah, right. With
That was
the
14 foot by 8 foot. Again,
okay,
a glass and steel structure of a 3-dimensional sacred window that punches out from the building. And that was
okay,
another one that, you got to fabricate that in steel. And you really do fly by the seat of your pants, but you've got a lot of people working on it. So you got to make sure everybody's on the same page.
yeah, okay.
It's really
Um,
fun. I mean, really, when you think about it.
sure, yeah. I mean, if you're into it, you gotta, takes time. So tell us about your book, The Creative Process. I know it's a small thing, but
Oh, you mean the I'm sorry,
online.
the
I'm sorry, the ebook.
okay,
Yes, sorry,
the ebook. And so
the
what
ebook.
you're
Yes,
talking about is 8 short stories to fuel your creative journey.
correct. Right.
That's the book. And
Yes.
what those were based on different little talks I gave called In Betweens. So when I do my podcast, I have what's called In Betweens from interviewing guests. And I talk about things like what is a creative block or
Mhm.
perfectionism or perfection isn't. And so I talk about these things that artists deal with. So let's talk about perfectionism. I'm sure you've had this conversation with people. Everybody has, like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't because I wouldn't be perfect at it. I mean, have you
Sure.
heard that? I mean, people, yeah. And
hmm
so I got to tell you, it makes me crazy to hear that. I taught art school for many years, college and high school, and I had kids that they were, I don't want to do this. Why? Well, it won't be perfect. Okay. I'll tell you what, you show me a perfect human being and I will yield to your argument. And I did it playfully, always
Right.
respectfully, but to talk about perfectionism is a way to paralyze yourself. It's a way to make yourself so self-conscious you don't allow that spark of what's inside of you to come out.
Mm.
So that's what that little book is about.
Okay. So art, I mean, does art help you in other areas of life? I know it sounds like a dumb question, but
Mm.
I'm thinking, you're locked into art and art. Is it helping you in other areas of life besides meeting people, of course?
That's a profound question. I think art has saved my life. I
Mm.
think that it's a way of looking at the world. For me, I'm not speaking for other artists. I wouldn't dream of speaking for what art is for other people. So I'm just giving you my little viewpoint. For
Sure.
me, art is a way of looking at the world. That's how I make sense of the world. For example, I do a podcast, okay? But what do? I make a poster of my guest and their work.
I saw
Every
that
guest
too.
has a poster designed about them and their work. Now, why the hell would I do that? Because I have to make art out of everything I do. It's just the way
That's
I
right.
roll. But I can tell you, Bob, when I was in high school, I got into a lot of stuff, and I can remember really pushing the envelope, and I was drinking and getting into stuff. And I remember one day being drunk on my ass, sitting in a road. And I asked myself, I could hear this voice say to me, do you want to be a drunk or do you want to be an artist? I'll never forget it. It was like it happened yesterday. I
Wow.
was 15, 16. And then I got up, and that was the end of drinking. That was
Mm.
it. Because to me, art making isn't a career, it's a calling, it's a vocation.
Sure.
It's what I'm meant to do. It's a way to touch lives.
Nice. Nice. I mean, you mentioned the podcast. What's it called again?
The podcast is called Fill to Capacity.
Right.
And it's a podcast for people too stubborn to quit and too creative not to make a difference.
There you go. All right. Do you have a favorite artist, whether it's a well-known person or not? Do you have a favorite artist?
Oh,
Like someone has
gosh.
a favorite athlete, or I'm sure you have a lot of different ones, but do you have a favorite artist that you know you look up to? I guess
Wow.
dead or alive.
That's a tough question, Bob. I mean, asking a mother, which of your children do you love the most? And they're all standing there looking at you. Really, Bob? Okay. So I would have to say for me, I love modern art. I love all sorts of art, but my heart belongs to early Renaissance, to Giotto, Andrea Mantegna, Piero della Francesca, Ghirlandaio, Verrocchio, Artemisia Gentileschi, that whole group. For me, and it starts with Giotto. Giotto is the beginning of Western painting as we know it. And I fell in love with that guy, and my life was never the same.
Maybe that's the one who was speaking to you when you were
Well, they
15.
they do.
um, so I have a segment since we're making choices here called this or that. It's just a preference thing. I'm going to give you couple choices. You tell me what your preference is. Okay, you up for that?
Okay,
Now, this doesn't
sure.
mean you hate the other one. You know what I mean? This is just a preference thing.
Got it.
So let's go with wine. Well, actually, I may know the answer to this: wine, beer, or whiskey. But you said you stopped drinking.
Yeah, but I mean, I have wine. I'm
Okay,
Italian, Bob. How the hell
that's
can I not
I
have
was
a
concerned.
good,
I was
big
concerned there.
bottle of wine?
Okay, that sounds good. Um, Now, do you sip while you're painting? I mean, it sounds like a thing to do.
No, I'm not a sipper. I'm not casual. When I'm in the studio, I am kicking ass and taking names.
All right,
Okay?
all right, sounds good. Sounds good. Um, Art museum or arts festival?
Museums.
Okay. Pizza or pasta?
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Bob,
Hey, got to
Bob,
make a choice.
how do you ask any Italian that? Shame on you. Okay. Are we talking homemade pasta?
Everything's homemade.
Um, all right. Well,
Let's just
a
say tonight,
perfect.
if you had the choice.
I would probably say gnocchi pasta.
Okay. All right. Scaring me there. I thought you were going to go with pizza. I love pizza, but you got to go pasta.
Oh, I do too. I do
Got to go
too.
pasta. Got to go pasta. Black and white or color in reference to art?
Oh, I love them both. Wow. Um, Black and white for the power, the contrast.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Da Vinci, Picasso, or Van Gogh? Preference.
I think of the three. I love them for different reasons. I love the dynamism of Van Gogh, the brushstrokes, the energy, the passion, the tenderness.
Now that's impressionist work, right? Correct, Van Gogh.
It'd be more. He goes from impressionism to expressionism. He's kind of crossing over because of the physicality of his brush marks. Of those three, I would go with Van Gogh.
Okay. Cat or dog?
Oh, cat.
Yeah. Credit or cash?
Whoa! I grew up in a generation of cash, but
Yeah,
I
right.
am
Italians
a
pay
credit girl
cash.
now.
They're a credit girl.
All my family did, but I'm of this generation, so I use credit.
All right. Calling or texting?
Oh boy, I'm going to date myself here. I do like hearing the voice, but I text. I'm just going to say it. I fess up. I text.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's so do I.
But
Driver.
I spell, Bob. I know how to spell. Okay, continue.
Driver or passenger?
Driver.
Driver. All right. Now, if you could travel there, outer space or bottom of the sea?
Boy, that's a tough one. I've always been fascinated by under the sea.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm
my
also
go-to.
fascinated by the stars, but
Yeah.
I just think there's a whole universe under the water.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I got to go under the sea too. Beach or pool?
Beach or what?
Pool.
Pool?
Swimming pool. Yeah.
Oh, hell, swimming pool. I don't want to stick my foot in the water and not know what's down there. I want the pool.
Coffee date or cocktail date?
Coffee. A good
Coffee.
cup of coffee date.
There you go. All right, here, last one. So we already established the Italian background for us. So homemade lasagna, homemade ravioli, or homemade linguine?
Oh.
You only have one choice.
Oh. Okay.
Lasagna, ravioli, or linguine?
I'll say linguine because you can have aglio olio. You can do anything you want with a linguine, a homemade, beautiful linguine.
Yeah, sounds good. It sounds nice too. I'm a lasagna guy, but whatever. I mean, I like all three. I'm not going to turn them away.
No.
So where can people find Pat? I know online, but maybe you could tell them, where you can go to for people to look you up.
Okay. Well, if you Google my name, Pat Benincasa, you will go to my website, patbenincasa-art.com.
Been there. It's great. It's a great website.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of stuff. A lot of
Well,
stuff.
it's a few years of art making under my belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. I recommend going to that website for sure. Now the book, I think the book you can go and get anything off the website. Like if they wanted the ebook, you can,
Yep.
You can go for that. Now what's 2024 have in store for you? Or what are you looking to do, if anything?
Well, I'm working on podcast guests, as you know, like what you do.
Sure.
And And I'm working on my own projects, paintings, and just a year of work and podcasting. Sounds great to
Okay.
me.
Yeah, sure. Now, are you still educating? You still teaching?
I stopped teaching just before COVID, but I do
Damn
guest
COVID.
lecture. I gave a talk at McAllister College in St. Paul and UW, University of Wisconsin at Stout. So I do a lot of guest lectures.
Well, Pat, I really appreciate you coming on. I learned a lot of stuff today, and I wish you the best in 2024.
Thank
You
you
could
for
say
the
that.
invite coming on.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. This is a blast.